Marcus Williams had always been a light sleeper, but tonight was different. The October rain hammered against his bedroom window with an intensity that seemed almost personal, as if the storm was trying to break in. He had been tossing and turning for hours, unable to shake the feeling that something was watching him from the dark corners of his room. At exactly 2:47 a.m., his phone shattered the silence. The ringtone seemed louder than usual, more urgent. Marcus fumbled for the device on his nightstand, squinting at the bright screen. Unknown number. His first instinct was to decline, but something made him hesitate. His mother had been having health issues lately, and emergencies didn't follow convenient schedules. "Hello?" His voice was thick with sleep. "Marcus?" The voice was female, familiar in a way that made his stomach twist. "Oh, honey, thank God you answered." Marcus sat up slowly, his brain struggling to process what he was hearing. Who is this?" "It's your mother, sweetheart. You need to come home right now. Something terrible has happened. I need you here." The phone nearly slipped from Marcus's suddenly sweaty palm. "Mom, what are you talking about?" "I am home. You're sleeping in the room right next to mine. We had dinner together 3 hours ago, remember? You made that awful tuna casserole." A long pause. When the voice returned, it carried a strange quality, like an echo of an echo. "Marcus, listen to me very carefully. If I'm sleeping in the next room, then who exactly is making this phone call?" His heart began hammering against his ribs. The question hung in the air like smoke, poisoning every rational thought. Marcus looked toward his mother's room. The door was closed, just as it had been when he went to bed. No light underneath, no sounds. "Marcus," the voice continued, and now he could hear something else in it, a wet, sliding quality that hadn't been there before. "Marcus, I think you should check on your mother. Make sure she's okay. Make sure she's still there." With trembling hands that felt disconnected from his body, Marcus swung his legs out of bed. The hardwood floor was ice cold against his bare feet. Each step toward his mother's room felt like walking through quicksand. The phone remained pressed to his ear, and he could hear breathing on the other end, slow, deliberate breaths that didn't quite sound human. He reached his mother's door and paused, his hand hovering over the doorknob. Part of him, the rational part, wanted to knock first, but a deeper instinct told him that whatever was on the other side of that door might not want to be announced. The doorknob turned with a soft click. Marcus pushed the door open and felt his world tilt sideways. The bed was empty. Not just empty, it looked like it hadn't been slept in at all. The sheets were pulled tight, hospital corners perfect, pillow fluffed and untouched. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that everything was covered in a thin layer of dust, as if no one had been in this room for weeks. No, Marcus whispered, stumbling into the room. He yanked open the closet. Empty hangers swayed like skeletal fingers. The dresser drawers, empty. Every trace of his mother's existence had been erased. The phone was still pressed to his ear, and now he could hear something that made his blood freeze. Laughter. Soft feminine laughter that sounded exactly like his mother's. "Marcus?" the voice said, and now it was coming from behind him, not from the phone. "Turn around slowly, honey." Marcus spun around and saw her standing in the doorway. His mother, wearing the same blue nightgown she'd had on at dinner, but her eyes were wrong, completely black, like looking into deep wells, and her smile was too wide, stretching far beyond what human facial muscles should allow. "I've been trying to get back inside for so long, but you kept the doors locked, so I had to find another way in." Marcus backed against the window, his phone falling from nerveless fingers. "You're not my mother. What did you do with my mother?" The thing wearing his mother's face tilted its head at an impossible angle. "Oh, but I am your mother, Marcus. I'm just improved. Would you like to see what I really look like underneath?" The skin on the creature's face began to ripple and shift like water disturbed by stones. Marcus squeezed his eyes shut and screamed, but when he opened them again, he was alone in the empty room. His phone was buzzing on the floor, a text message from an unknown number. "Thanks for letting me in, son. Sweet dreams." When Marcus ran to his own room and looked in the mirror, his reflection was smiling that same too wide smile, even though his real face was frozen in terror.
Sarah Chen had always been practical about supernatural things, which is to say, she didn't believe in them at all. Ghosts, demons, haunted objects, all nonsense designed to sell movie tickets and cheap thrills. So when she moved into the vintage apartment on Elm Street, the landlord's nervous warning about the bathroom mirror didn't concern her in the slightest. Previous tenant was, particular about that mirror. Old Mr. Henderson had mumbled, avoiding eye contact. Wanted it replaced, but it's original to the building. Part of the charm, you know? Historic value. Sarah had nodded politely while internally rolling her eyes. The mirror was indeed old, silvered glass with those characteristic black spots that antique mirrors develop over time. It was slightly warped, giving reflections of funhouse quality that was more amusing than disturbing. For the first week, everything was perfectly normal. Sarah settled into her routine, morning coffee, evening Netflix, weekend grocery runs. The mirror reflected exactly what it should reflect, when it should reflect it. The first sign something was wrong came on a Tuesday morning while she was brushing her teeth. Sarah noticed something odd. Her reflection seemed to lag behind her movements by just a fraction of a second. When she raised her toothbrush, her reflection raised it a beat later. When she leaned forward to spit, her reflection followed suit just a hair too slowly. She blinked hard, thinking she was just tired from staying up late unpacking boxes. But the lag was definitely there. "Weird," she muttered, and watched her reflection's mouth move a split second after her own. By Thursday, the lag had gotten worse. It was now a full second behind, which was impossible to ignore. Sarah found herself standing in front of the mirror, waving her hands and watching her reflection copy the movements like a bad video call with poor connection. She pulled out her phone and recorded herself in the mirror. When she played it back, everything looked normal. Her reflection moved in perfect sync. But standing there in real time, the delay was undeniable. Friday night, Sarah invited Jessica over for wine and Chinese takeout. "Check this out," Sarah said, dragging Jessica to the bathroom. "Watch my reflection." Sarah waved at the mirror. Her reflection waved back immediately. Okay, it's working like a normal mirror, Sarah. Maybe lay off the wine," Jessica laughed. But Sarah knew what she'd been seeing. The mirror was playing games with her, somehow behaving normally when witnesses were present. The real terror began the following Tuesday at 3:17 a.m. Sarah woke up needing to use the bathroom. Half asleep, she stumbled across her dark apartment, not bothering to turn on lights. She flicked on the bathroom light and immediately froze. Her reflection was already there, staring back at her, but Sarah hadn't stepped in front of the mirror yet. The reflection was standing exactly where Sarah was about to stand, hands at its sides, wearing the same pajamas. But its eyes were focused on something behind Sarah, something that wasn't there. Sarah's blood turned to ice water. She took a step back. Her reflection didn't move. "What the hell?" Sarah whispered. Her reflection's mouth didn't move, but Sarah heard her own voice whisper back, "What the hell?" Sarah stumbled backward out of the bathroom and slammed the door. She grabbed her phone and called Jessica. "Sarah, it's 3 a.m. What's wrong?" "The mirror. Something's wrong with the mirror. My reflection. It's not following me anymore." "You're having a nightmare. Go back to sleep." But Sarah couldn't sleep. She sat on her couch until sunrise, staring at the bathroom door. When morning came, she cautiously opened the bathroom door. Everything looked normal. She approached the mirror slowly, and her reflection appeared exactly when it should, moving in perfect synchronization. That evening, Sarah decided to set up her phone to record the bathroom overnight. If something was happening, she'd have proof. She positioned the phone on the bathroom counter, hit record, and went to bed. The next morning, she checked the footage. For the first few hours, nothing. Just an empty bathroom with normal mirror reflections when she'd gotten up for water. But at 3:17 a.m., something appeared in the mirror. A figure stepped into view. Sarah, but not Sarah. This version was pale, gaunt, with hollow eyes and a smile that never wavered. It stood there for exactly 1 hour, staring directly at the camera, never blinking. Then it raised one finger and wrote something on the glass from the inside. "I want to switch places." Sarah's hand shook as she watched her doppelganger write more. "I've been trapped in here so long. Let me out. Let me live your life." The figure pressed both hands against the glass from the inside, and Sarah could swear she heard a faint tapping sound coming from her bathroom right now as she watched the video. The footage ended with the figure pointing directly at the camera, then pointing at itself, then making a gesture across its throat. Sarah ran to the bathroom. On the mirror, written in what looked like condensation but wouldn't wipe away, was a message. "Tonight, we trade." That evening, Sarah packed a bag and went to Jessica's house. She couldn't explain what was happening, but she knew she couldn't stay in that apartment. She spent 3 days at Jessica's, then finally worked up the courage to go back and get more of her things. When Sarah entered her apartment, everything looked normal. She creeped to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. Her reflection looked back, but something was wrong with its eyes. They were too bright, too aware. And when Sarah looked closely, she could see her reflection mouth the words, "Thank you for leaving. I've been practicing being you." Sarah's reflection winked, and Sarah realized with growing horror that she couldn't feel her own eye winking. She looked down at her hands. They were pale, translucent. She could see through them to the bathroom tiles below. Her reflection was now running around the apartment. Sarah could hear footsteps, doors opening and closing. But Sarah herself was stuck, trapped in the mirror space, watching as the thing that looked like her lived her life. The reflection returned to the mirror and pressed its face close to the glass. "Don't worry. I'll take good care of your life. Your friends will never know the difference. I've been watching and learning for so long." Sarah screamed and pounded on the glass from the inside, but no sound came out. Her reflection picked up Sarah's phone and typed a message to Jessica. "Hey, feeling so much better. That mirror thing was just stress. Want to grab dinner tonight?" The response came immediately. "Of course. So glad you're okay." Sarah's reflection smiled at her trapped form and whispered, "See? They can't tell the difference. No one will ever know you're gone." Sarah is still in there, trapped behind the glass, watching as her doppelganger lives her life perfectly. Sometimes, if you look very carefully in old mirrors, you can see her pounding silently on the glass, trying to warn you. But her reflection has gotten very good at pretending to be human.
David Moreau inherited the house on Sycamore Street from his great-aunt Martha, a woman he'd met exactly twice in his 34 years of life. The Victorian mansion was a generous inheritance that came with a catch. It was old, creaky, and filled with 6 decades worth of accumulated belongings that no one had bothered to sort through. "Just needs some love," the estate lawyer had said, with the kind of smile that suggested he was very glad to be handing over the keys to someone else.
David had been living there for 3 weeks, slowly working through the overwhelming task of deciding what to keep, what to donate, and what to throw away. The house had good bones, as his contractor friend Mike kept saying, but those bones creaked constantly, especially at night. The basement was David's least favorite part of the house. It was unfinished, with stone walls that wept moisture, and a dirt floor that seemed to absorb light. Great Aunt Martha had used it for storage, and it was packed with boxes of Christmas decorations from the 1960s, furniture covered in sheets, and the general detritus of a long life. David had been avoiding dealing with the basement, telling himself he'd get to it eventually. But then came the crying. It started on a Thursday night at 3:23 a.m. David awoke to the sound of an infant crying, that distinctive, heart-wrenching wail that seems designed by evolution to make adults respond immediately. His first thought was that it was coming from the young couple next door they'd mentioned they were expecting. But as David lay there listening, trying to fall back asleep, he realized the sound was coming from directly below his bedroom, from the basement. The crying continued for exactly 17 minutes, then stopped as suddenly as it had started. The next night, same time, same duration. By the third night, David was starting to feel like he was losing his mind. He called his neighbor Tom during the day. "Hey, weird question, but have you guys heard a baby crying at night around 3 a.m.? Tom looked confused. "Baby crying? No, man. My wife's pregnant, but she's not due for another 2 months. And even if she was, sound doesn't really carry between our houses." That night, David decided to investigate. He grabbed a flashlight, a baseball bat just in case, and his phone set to record. At 3:20 a.m., he positioned himself at the top of the basement stairs. Right on schedule, the crying began. It was definitely coming from the basement, but it seemed to move around down there, sometimes from the far corner, sometimes from near the water heater. David descended the stairs slowly, each step creaking loudly enough to wake the dead. The crying stopped the moment his foot touched the basement floor. He swept his flashlight around the cramped space. Everything looked exactly as he'd left it. Boxes stacked haphazardly, sheet-covered furniture, and his great-aunt's ancient washing machine. But something felt wrong. The air was colder than it should be, and it carried a strange smell, sweet and cloying like flowers left too long in water. He was about to head back upstairs when his flashlight beam caught something in the far corner. The dirt floor there looked disturbed, like someone had been digging. David approached cautiously and knelt down for a closer look. There was definitely a depression in the earth, roughly rectangular, about 3 feet long. David's stomach clenched as he realized what shape that was. Who dug a 3-foot hole in a basement? He aimed his flashlight into the shallow depression and saw a scrap of white fabric, mostly buried. Against every instinct screaming at him to leave it alone, David brushed away some of the dirt. It was definitely fabric, old, yellowed with age, but unmistakably a piece of what looked like a christening gown or baptismal dress. "Jesus," David whispered. That's when he heard it behind him. "Papa!" David spun around so fast he dropped his flashlight. It rolled across the floor, beams spinning wildly, creating a strobe effect of shadows dancing on the walls. In the chaos of light and dark, David thought he saw a small figure standing near the stairs. "Papa, I'm cold." The voice was that of a very young child, maybe 3 or 4 years old. David fumbled for his flashlight, hands shaking so badly he could barely grasp it. When he finally got the beam steady and pointed toward the stairs, nothing was there. But on the stairs themselves, David could see small, muddy footprints leading up toward the main floor. He followed them, taking the stairs 3 at a time. The footprints led through his kitchen, down the hallway, and stopped at his bedroom door. David burst into his bedroom and flicked on the lights.
The room was empty, but on his bedside table sat something that made his blood freeze. A baby bottle, old-fashioned glass with a rubber nipple, filled with what looked like milk. He hadn't put it there. He didn't own a baby bottle. The next morning, David called the local historical society, claiming to be interested in the history of his house for renovation purposes. "Oh, the house on Sycamore Street. Tragic history, that place. The original owners, the Whitmore family, lost their youngest child, little Emma. She was only 3. This was back in 1962. Terrible accident, poor thing. Fell down the basement stairs and broke her neck." David's mouth dried. What happened after? Well, the mother never recovered. Started claiming she could hear Emma crying at night, calling for her papa. The family moved out within 6 months, couldn't bear to stay. Been through quite a few owners since then. That night, David didn't even try to sleep. He sat in his living room with every light on, waiting. At 3:23 a.m., the crying started again. But this time it wasn't just coming from the basement. It was coming from his bedroom, then the kitchen, then the living room where he sat. The crying seemed to circle him, getting closer and closer, and mixed in with the sobs, David could hear words. "Papa, where were you? Why didn't you catch me? I'm so scared. I'm so cold." David closed his eyes and whispered, "I'm sorry, Emma. I'm so sorry." The crying stopped immediately. When David opened his eyes, a little girl was standing right in front of him. She was pale, translucent, wearing a white dress that was stained with dirt. Her neck was bent at an unnatural angle. "You're not my papa," she said, her voice filled with confusion and disappointment. "Where is my papa?" He's gone, sweetheart. That was a long time ago." Emma tilted her head, considering this. "Will you stay with me then? I don't like being alone in the dark." David looked at this broken child trapped in his house for over 60 years and felt his heart break. "Yes, Emma, I'll stay with you." Emma smiled, the first genuine smile David had seen since moving in. "Good, but first, will you come help me out of the basement? I've been trying to climb out for so long, but I can't quite reach." She took David's hand in her small, cold one and led him toward the basement stairs. David never came back up. His friends found him 3 days later, sitting in the basement corner next to that small rectangular depression, staring at nothing, completely unresponsive. The doctors said it was a complete psychotic break. Trauma from isolation, stress from the move, any number of rational explanations. But if you visit David in the psychiatric facility where he now lives, he'll tell you about Emma and how she's not alone anymore. He'll tell you how they play together in the basement and how she's teaching him games that children played in 1962. And if you listen very carefully when you visit David, you can hear him humming lullabies that he's never heard before, learned from a little girl who's been waiting 60 years for someone to stay with her in the dark.
Jake Morrison was driving home from his girlfriend's apartment when it happened. The rain was coming down in sheets, visibility near zero, and he was running late for his sister's birthday dinner. His phone buzzed with notifications, but Jake ignored them. He was a careful driver, especially in weather like this. The truck ran the red light at exactly 11:47 p.m. Jake saw it coming, but had no time to react. The impact sent his Honda Civic spinning across the intersection and into a concrete barrier. The last thing he remembered was the sound of twisting metal and his sister's voice calling his name from the emergency contact auto dial. Then, nothing. Jake woke up in his apartment, confused and disoriented. Sunlight was streaming through his bedroom windows, which was weird because he distinctly remembered it being nearly midnight. His head pounded and his body ached like he'd been hit by a truck. which, he realized with a chill, he had been. Jake sat up slowly, trying to piece together what had happened. Had someone brought him home from the hospital? He didn't remember being admitted, didn't remember talking to doctors or filling out paperwork. In fact, he didn't remember anything after seeing those headlights bearing down on him. His phone was buzzing insistently on the nightstand. Jake picked it up and saw dozens of missed calls from his family, his girlfriend Emma, his best friend Tyler. There were also several text notifications from a group chat he didn't recognize. Forever Family. 4 members. Jake frowned. He definitely hadn't joined any group called Forever Family, but there he was, listed as a member, along with 3 phone numbers he didn't recognize. He scrolled up to read the conversation history. Unknown number 1. Jake's been gone for 3 days now. Mom's worried sick. Unknown number 2. Dad keeps asking when Jake's coming home. He made Jake's favorite dinner again tonight. Unknown number 3. I miss my big brother. This isn't fair. Jake stared at the messages, his blood slowly turning cold. These people were talking about his family, but as if they were members of his family. And they were talking about him like he was missing. He typed quickly, "Who is this? How did you get information about my family?" The response came immediately. "Jake? Oh, honey, we've been so worried. Are you okay? Where have you been? Son, you need to come home. We've been waiting for you. Jake, I knew you'd come back. Mom's been crying for days." Jake's hands were shaking now. He called his mother's real number. It went straight to voicemail, her voice message recorded months ago, talking about how if this was an emergency to try her cell phone. But when Jake called her cell, that went to voicemail too. He called Emma. Same thing. Tyler, his sister, his father, every number in his phone was going straight to voicemail. Jake looked back at the group chat. Unknown number 1. Jake, sweetie, I know this is confusing, but you need to accept what happened. Unknown number 2. The accident was bad, son. Really bad. Unknown number 3. We're all together now, Jake. We're waiting for you to join us. What accident? Jake typed, though part of him already knew. Unknown number 1. The accident on Friday night. You were coming home from Emma's. Do you remember? Jake did remember. The rain, the red light, the truck that ran the intersection. But he was here, in his apartment, very much alive. Wasn't he? Jake got up and walked to his bathroom mirror. His reflection looked back at him, but something was wrong. He looked pale, washed out, like an overexposed photograph, and there was something dark around his neck, a shadow that looked suspiciously like bruising. He touched his throat. It felt cold, much colder than the rest of his body. The group chat was buzzing with new messages. Unknown number 1. He's starting to remember. Unknown number 2. Show him the location, Mom. Show him where we are. A location pin appeared in the chat. He clicked on it with trembling fingers. Greenlawn Cemetery. Section C, plots 47 to 50. Unknown number 1. We're all here, Jake. We've been waiting for you to accept it and come home. Jake's legs gave out. He sank to his bathroom floor, staring at his phone in horror. No, this isn't real. I'm alive. I'm right here. Unknown number 2. Son, look around your apartment. Really, look. For the first time, Jake actually paid attention to his surroundings. Everything was covered in a thin layer of dust, as if no one had been there for days. The plants he'd watered religiously were dead. The milk in his refrigerator had an expiration date from last week. His calendar on the wall was still turned to Friday, the day of the accident. Unknown number 3. The doctors worked on you for 47 minutes, but your injuries were too severe. The group sent a photo. Jake opened it and immediately wished he hadn't. It was a newspaper clipping. Local man dies in rain-related traffic accident. Below the headline was his picture, his driver's license photo, and a brief article describing how Jake Morrison, 28, had been pronounced dead at City General Hospital after being struck by a truck that ran a red light. Jake stared at the article, reading it over and over. The details were all correct: his age, his job, even the intersection where it happened. Unknown number 1. We know this is hard to accept, sweetie, but you've been gone for 3 days. Your funeral was yesterday. Unknown number 2. It was beautiful, son. Emma spoke about how much you loved her. Tyler told that story about the fishing trip. Unknown number 3. I threw a rose on your casket just like in the movies. Mom cried so hard Dad had to hold her up. Jake was hyperventilating now. He called Emma's number again, desperate to hear a human voice, any human voice. This time, someone answered. Hello? It was Emma, but her voice was thick with tears. Emma! Oh God, Emma, I'm so glad you answered. There's something really weird happening. I think someone is playing a prank on me. Who is this? Emma's voice was sharp now, suspicious. It's Jake! It's me, baby! Someone's been sending me messages pretending to be my family saying I'm dead, but obviously I'm not because I'm talking to you right now. The line went quiet for a long moment. This isn't funny, Emma whispered. Jake is dead. I was at his funeral yesterday. Whoever this is, you're sick. She hung up. Jake stared at his phone in disbelief. He immediately called back, but the number was blocked. The group chat buzzed again. She can't hear you anymore, Jake. None of them can. You're not part of their world anymore. You're part of our world now. Come home, big brother. We miss you. A new picture appeared in the chat. This one showed 4 gravestones in a night row. 3 of them had names and dates that Jake didn't recognize. The 4th one was fresh, the earth still dark and recently turned. The name on the 4th stone was Jacob Morrison. The date of death was 3 days ago. Jake felt himself dissolving, becoming less solid. He looked at his hands and could see through them to the bathroom tiles below. Unknown number 1. Don't fight it anymore, sweetheart. Come be with your family. Unknown number 2. That's it, son. Let go. Come home. Jake's reflection in the mirror was fading, becoming translucent. Behind his reflection, he could see 3 figures standing in what looked like a cemetery: an older woman, an older man, and a teenage girl. They all looked exactly like his family, but their eyes were hollow, and their smiles were too wide. Unknown number 2. That's it, son. Let go. Come home. Jake felt himself being pulled through the mirror, through space, through the barrier between life and death. The last thing he saw was his empty apartment, already gathering dust, already forgotten. His phone remained on the bathroom floor, the group chat still active. Welcome home, Jake. Forever family. Jake Morrison has joined the chat. Jake Morrison. Where am I? Unknown number 3. You're with us now, big brother. Forever and ever. The group chat is still active. Sometimes random people get accidentally added to it. If you ever receive an invitation to Forever Family, don't accept it. And if messages start appearing anyway, well, maybe it's time to check if you can still see your reflection.
When Rebecca Torres moved into the old Victorian house on Maple Street, the first thing the realtor mentioned was that the previous owners had left some items in the attic. Nothing valuable, Mrs. Patterson assured her with that practiced realtor smile. Just some old furniture and childhood memorabilia. The family said you're welcome to keep whatever you want and dispose of the rest. Rebecca didn't mind.
The house was gorgeous and priced well below market value. If hauling some junk out of the attic was the trade-off, she'd take it. The first time Rebecca climbed up to the attic, she was pleasantly surprised. It was spacious, well lit by a large window, and contained mostly furniture that could be restored or donated. Antique dressers, a rocking chair, boxes of books and china. And in the corner, sitting in the old rocking chair as if it had been placed there deliberately, was a doll. Rebecca had never been a fan of dolls. Something about their glassy, unblinking stares had always unsettled her. This one was particularly disturbing. It was about 2 feet tall, with porcelain head and hands, dressed in a Victorian-era blue dress with tiny pearl buttons. Its hair was real human hair, blonde and curly, styled in ringlets, that had maintained their shape despite what must have been decades in the attic. But it was the doll's eyes that made Rebecca's skin crawl. They were glass green, but they seemed to follow her as she moved around the attic. And its mouth was painted in a small, secretive smile that seemed to suggest it knew something Rebecca didn't. "Creepy little thing," Rebecca muttered, making a mental note to donate it along with everything else. But when she went back downstairs, Rebecca forgot about the doll entirely. She was busy with unpacking, setting up utilities, and learning her new neighborhood. It wasn't until 3 days later that Rebecca remembered the attic cleanout. She climbed back up with some boxes to pack everything for donation. But when she reached the top of the stairs, she stopped short. The doll was no longer in the rocking chair. Rebecca looked around the attic, confused. Had it fallen? She checked behind the chair, under nearby boxes, even in the corners where it might have rolled. Nothing. Then she spotted it. The doll was sitting on the opposite side of the attic, near the window, positioned so it was facing the stairs, facing Rebecca. "That's weird," Rebecca said aloud, her voice echoing in the empty space. She walked over and picked up the doll, intending to put it back in the rocking chair. But the moment her hands touched the porcelain, she felt a shock of cold that ran up her arms and into her chest. The doll's dress was damp, as if it had been outside in the morning dew. Rebecca quickly placed it back in the rocking chair and hurried downstairs. That night, Rebecca was awakened by a sound she couldn't immediately identify. It was rhythmic, gentle, coming from somewhere above her bedroom. Creak, creak, creak. It took her a moment to realize what it was. Someone rocking in a chair. The rocking chair in the attic was directly above her bed. Rebecca lay still, listening. The rocking continued for exactly 10 minutes, then stopped. The next morning, Rebecca convinced herself she'd imagined it. Old houses made noises, especially Victorian houses with settling foundations and aging wood. But when she went up to the attic to continue packing, the doll had moved again. This time, it was sitting at the top of the stairs, as if it had been waiting for her. And its position had changed. Instead of sitting upright with its hands folded in its lap, the doll was leaning forward slightly, its glass eyes angled downward to stare directly at whoever came up the stairs. Rebecca felt a chill that had nothing to do with the October weather. She decided to call the previous owners. "Oh, you found Evangeline," Mrs. Hamilton said when Rebecca described the doll. Her voice carried a strange mix of sadness and relief. "Evangeline? That's what my daughter called her. The doll belonged to my grandmother originally, then it was passed down through the family. My daughter played with it constantly when she was young." Your daughter? Does she live with you now?" A long pause. "My daughter died when she was 7. Leukemia. That was 15 years ago." "I'm so sorry." After Emma passed, strange things started happening with that doll. We'd find it in different rooms, different positions. Sometimes we'd hear, well, it sounds crazy, but we'd hear a child laughing when no children were in the house. Finally, we decided to leave Evangeline behind when we moved. It seemed like she wanted to stay. That night, the rocking started again at exactly 3:17 a.m. This time, Rebecca decided to investigate. She crept up the attic stairs, flashlight in hand. The rocking chair was moving back and forth slowly, but it was empty. Rebecca approached carefully, and the rocking gradually slowed to a stop. She shined her light around the attic and found the doll sitting in its usual spot near the window. But something was different. The doll's blue dress now had grass stains on it, and there were small flowers woven into its blonde hair, daisies and violets that definitely hadn't been there before. Rebecca knelt down for a closer look and nearly dropped her phone. The doll's painted smile seemed wider than before, and there was something new in its expression. Not malice, but longing, deep, aching loneliness. "Emma?" Rebecca whispered. The temperature in the attic dropped 20 degrees in an instant. Her breath came out in visible puffs, and frost began forming on the window glass. And then she heard it. A child's voice, faint as whisper, coming from the doll's painted mouth. "Will you play with me?" Rebecca stumbled backward, nearly falling down the stairs, but something in that small, sad voice stopped her from running. "You're Emma, aren't you? Mrs. Hamilton's daughter?" "Mama left me," the voice said, and now Rebecca could see the doll's mouth moving slightly. "Everyone left me. I don't want to be alone anymore." Rebecca felt her heart breaking. This little girl had been trapped here for 15 years, attached to her favorite toy, with no one to play with and no way to move on. "Emma, sweetie, your mama didn't want to leave you, but sometimes people have to move away. Will you stay with me?" The doll's head turned to look directly at Rebecca. "Will you be my new mama?" Rebecca saw the trap then. This lonely spirit wanted someone to stay with her forever, just like the doll had been left behind. Someone to keep her company in this attic for eternity. "I can't stay with you, Emma, but I know someone who's been missing you very much." Rebecca pulled out her phone and dialed Mrs. Hamilton's number. "Mrs. Hamilton, I know it's late, but I think Emma wants to come home." 2 days later, Mrs. Hamilton arrived to collect Evangeline. When she saw the doll sitting in the rocking chair, she burst into tears. "Hello, baby girl," she whispered, picking up the doll. "Mama's so sorry she left you behind." For just a moment, Rebecca could swear she saw the translucent figure of a 7-year-old girl standing next to Mrs. Hamilton, holding her mother's hand. "Thank you," Emma's voice whispered, though the doll's mouth didn't move. "I can go home now." Mrs. Hamilton took Evangeline with her, and the attic fell silent. But sometimes when Rebecca is lying in bed at night, she can hear the faint sound of a child's laughter coming from somewhere far away. Not sad or lonely anymore, but joyful. The sound of a little girl who's finally home where she belongs.